Szeretettel köszöntöm kedves nézőinket, Gellér Varga Zsuzsanna vagyok, dokumentumfilmes, és én fogom most ezt a beszélgetést vezetni a következő fél órában. A vendégünk a Miénk, a Haza című film rendezője, Shamira Raphaela, és egyébként ugye ezt a beszélgetést a moziban szoktuk megejteni a filmek után, ahol is szemtől szembe szoktam a nézőkkel állni, és a rendezővel is, de most csak így képernyőn keresztül fogunk beszélgetni. Viszont ennek az az előnye, hogy így az egész országban nagyon sokan láthatják, úgyhogy reméljük, hogy a filmet is, meg a beszélgetést is sokkal többen megnézik majd, mint hogyha a moziban beszélgetnénk. Hi Shamira!
Hello!
Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today in this virtual studio. Your film, Our Motherland, is in competition in the festival, and it's a very heavy and intense watch. Congratulations for the film, because it's a very important subject. And you have been making documentaries on different subject matters, like you did another political one, you did a children documentary, you did a personal documentary as well. How do you choose your subjects usually? What excites you? What do you make films about?
I guess anger for me is always a good let me see, source of inspiration, or when I feel like there is injustice. And I guess one film always leads me to the other film. So like you said, I indeed started with a very personal film, and I guess from there on, I found all my other stories. And I guess what connects all my work is that I like to make films about bad guys who can be good, and good people who can be bad. So I'm always searching for like that gray area and in the darkness, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because that's exactly what I wanted to ask about Kösters, right? Constant Kösters is the main guy's name. It's a little hard to pronounce it for non-Dutch speakers, but Kösters. So how did you end up making a film about him? How did you end up finding him at all in the first place?
Yeah, so I guess I was very frustrated about the climate in Holland, so I felt like we are becoming more right-wing, and populism is growing bigger and bigger. So I really wanted to make a film about that. And then I thought, well, let me search for like the worst of the worst of the worst person that I can find on this subject. And let me see if I can like face the monster under my bed, because in a way I had always been very afraid of these people, to put it like that. And I felt like I wanted to face my fears. And to do that, I needed to find the most extreme person of them all. And that was this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How did you meet him the first time? How did
so
you
I
make
actually
contact
called
with
him. Yeah, I called him up, but my name is Shamira Raphaela. So I'm like, well, that probably won't sit well with like with like a white supremacist. So I kind of like said like my name is Sharon, and then and then we talked for like, I guess we talked for like 2 hours, because I always believe that you can make a connection with anybody, right? You just have to find like a certain thing that you can level with them. And I guess I could find that click in him, with him. And that's the way that our contact started. And then after the long phone call, he's like, well, I missed your name. What's your name again? And then I'm like, oh, damn, this is the end. But I guess I already got under his skin in a way.
But did the second time, did you also tell him when he asked back at the end of the conversation that you are Sharon?
No, I didn't know. No. Then I told him honestly, and of course he Googled me and he found out that I'm his enemy in a way, because I'm mixed race, and I stand for everything that he is against. Mm-hmm. But I guess that made an interesting connection, because in a way I was always honest with him, so we had the same reason to work on this film. My reason was I want to show that Holland is becoming way more right-wing and that mainstream politics are getting worse. And he totally agrees with that, because he's very happy with the situation as it is now. So in a way we had the same reason to want to share this story with the public, which sounds weird, but yeah, we had a common ground.
That is interesting, yeah. And how was the personal relationship with him when you met him in person, when you saw him, when he saw you for the first time? What was his reaction? How was your relationship from that point?
You know, it's strange, but we did kind of become, well, I wouldn't say friends, but I do still talk to him sometimes. First, our conversations were mainly on the phone because he was also very protective of his family, and he was also very, I guess you could say, distrusting of everything that was press. And but I guess once we got to know each other, you know, everybody wants to be seen, everybody wants to be heard, right? We all want to be seen in this life. So when you give somebody attention, and when you, and I'm not talking about fake attention, but when you are interested in somebody, right. They naturally respond by opening up, I guess. So we build a relationship, and sometimes it was hard for me, I'm going to tell you honestly, because the things that he says are sometimes very hurtful for me, personally even. But I try to approach it as a surgeon, that when I'm filming, I try not to be there as a person with all my emotions. I try to be there as a doctor.
Yeah, but when you're filming with someone, it's like 10% when you're actually filming, and let's say 90% when you're not filming. And
yes,
relating.
It took a lot of energy. But you know what? I always feel that as a director, filmmaking is also about developing yourself emotionally, spiritually, about challenging yourself. I want to challenge the audience with this film because it's so uncomfortable. But I also wanted to challenge myself during the process of making this. Like, can I actually step over all my hate and fear and prejudice that I have?
Can you?
So it was an experiment.
Can you?
And yes, I guess in making this film, in a way, it comforted me as well. Because like I said in the beginning, I was so afraid of these people, fearful. And now that I know that they are, I mean, I always knew, but I mean, now that I'm closer to them, in a way, they're less scary. That doesn't mean that the whole movement isn't scary and dangerous in my eyes. But to make a one-on-one connection with somebody does make it less, let me see, then it's more about human interaction, right? Than about political, ideological standpoints.
Did it ever cross your mind that you're maybe making this person likable with the film, because it's all with this family, beautiful
I did it on
family.
purpose. And I got criticism on that, especially here in my country, which I thought was actually good. Because what I wanted to do is, in our country, people like to say that there is no racism. A lot of people in our country like to deny that they have anything to do with racism, or that there's any kind of systematic racism. And I wanted to show them that this racism is in all of us. It's in our DNA. It's in our blood. I mean, without you even wanting that, because it's in our history, right? So the way to do that for me was to make this monster, right, very likable, so that you would almost, so that you can feel very uncomfortable, because now he's just your neighbor. He's just maybe your colleague. He's just a dad picking up his daughter at school, right? So it's already amongst us. So I always find it very interesting when people feel that it's, for example, dangerous to humanize him. But I think it's more dangerous to dehumanize the other. Totally. And I'll tell you why, if I can continue this monologue.
Yes, please. No.
I think it's more dangerous to dehumanize the other. Why? Because in my family, my personal films are about my own family, and I have Caribbean heritage, and my brother and dad, they are in and out of prison, criminals. So they are the enemy. They are the other. They are the ones that people only see as part of a news story and never really see as people. And by doing that, by placing them outside of society, they radicalize. They become more criminal. They become more into their own bubble, right? Because they're not part of society. So why the hell would they conform to society? And in a way, I see that same mechanism with these people here in the Netherlands, where you have mainstream Holland who wants to deny that these people exist, and at the same time who want to deny that racism exists. But by doing that, it's not going to go away.
Right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah. It's also a little bit resonates with that scene when the immigrants, or I don't know, how do you describe them, who live there but they don't really speak Dutch, but they come to the scene pushing their bikes. Yes. And they are standing on the street and they are telling them, the immigrants, that Dutch, Holland or Netherlands is good.
It's good, yeah.
It's good, yeah. So, and he's like, he doesn't know how to react. Like he's frozen. And that's pretty much what you said from the other side, right? From the other point of view.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a really great moment to catch. Like, did you plan it to
No, I didn't. I didn't hire the fugitives.
No, I didn't mean to stage it, but like, did you wait for something like that to happen? Did you expect something like that?
It was actually, no, it was really a coincidence, yes. Just like I was very, I guess you could say, happy with the scene where his little child is getting teased and she's crying a lot because they're calling her like a little Nazi child. That was also like not on purpose, but for me that was also like flipping the perspective, right?
Right, absolutely. No, it works really well in the film.
And then at the same time, that conversation could have taken place in my family, where my niece could have gotten home crying that they're calling her family criminals and foreigners and etc. Yeah.
How did he give you such close access to the family, like to their living room, everyday lives? How did you earn that trust from him?
Well, it took me like, I guess we worked like for 3 years with each other. So it really took some time to get there. And I always say I'm also very, very thankful. I mean, besides what you think of him, he did give us access to the birth of his child. And with us, I mean, me, you who watched the film. So regardless, I am thankful for him that he opened up to me like that.
What do you think was his intention of taking part of the film, apart from what you already said? But
yeah, no, his intention was that he felt that, well, first of all, of course, he always feels that he's misrepresented in the media because they never show his normal side. So I guess his main intention was to show that he feels that things are going great. There's this quote where he's saying, "I didn't radicalize, but the whole of the political spectrum is now coming more and more in my direction. So I'm so positive, and I think Europe is going to have a great future." So for him, I guess it was his chance to spread, I don't know, that message that he has. And then, of course, there are people who are saying, should you give a person like this a stage? Should you tell this story, for example? Should you let him talk about his views of the world? Well, that's an interesting philosophical question, right?
It is, absolutely. It was one of my questions too, but then I concluded yes, of course. I mean, you have to know what's around you and who is your neighbor, basically, so yes.
Yeah, and I also think that as filmmakers, it's very easy to, like all my other films, I filmed marginalized people, and then it was always either immigrants or maybe a story in Africa far away. And that's when people love to watch marginalized people, right? Because then it's far away and it has nothing to do with you. And then so that also made me think, like, why would I go all the way to Africa if there are so many stories here that are not being told? Yeah. And it kind of angers me that we're in the middle of such a polarized society and that there are not like 20 films made about this subject, at least in my country. I don't know how it is in your country.
None. Maybe one or two. Yeah, but it's definitely
because we are afraid to touch the subject. We are afraid to touch it. And I always say I got a lot of criticism on my film, which I think is marvelous, because let's talk about it. Let's talk about what are the boundaries of art, right?
Exactly. What about talking about art? I was really interested about your reasons to use the sandbox. I don't know if you call that in English, the sandbox, sand table.
Yeah, like the miniature, right?
Yeah, the miniature thing. I really don't know the exact word for that in English, but it's like a miniature city, and you have miniature like trucks in it. So what was the reason you decided to use it for?
Because I wanted to show that. So our like a slogan in Holland is always like where a small country is very big in, because Holland is always proud of that they're like a small country, but they're mentally big. So I guess for me, I wanted to zoom out with those images, right? Because first I only made the film about him. First it was just a portrait of this guy, but then when I had the viewings with the broadcaster and everything, all the people were like, oh yeah, he's a crazy clown and this film is not about us. And then I'm like, okay, wait a minute. This film is definitely about you all as well. I need to do something. And that's when I decided to put in all like the archival material in, and also to put in this miniature version of Holland to make the story not about this individual, but to make it really about our country. And also because it feels a bit nostalgic, I guess. It feels a little bit of, it feels sweet. It feels.
It's like a toy.
It's like a toy, and it's like everything that they feel Holland should be. All these nationalist, populist people. So it's almost like their dream world as well.
It's polished,
right?
Very polished. Everything is clean.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing footage about him being younger. Custer's being younger. How did you find that? Because it adds so much to the story that you could see him unchanged basically for 20 plus years. I don't know how old that footage is, maybe even 30 or something like that. How did you end up finding that?
So here in Holland, we have like an institute where all the old footage that's almost basically ever been shot, that they keep it. It's like a very big library. So I found it in that library, and that's where so then you can buy it.
Okay.
So I bought it, and I thought it was interesting because what he says in the interview is like, my standpoints didn't change. I only changed my image, right? And I think that's very interesting.
It is, and he actually says the same things then, which was probably back then, like that was how long ago?
That was like in the 80s.
80s.
So it's like 20 years ago, 25 years ago.
80s. That's like 40 years ago almost.
Oh my God, I'm still getting so old.
Yeah.
Is this real? No, well, okay, maybe 90s.
Yeah, 90s, okay, maybe.
But because he was 90, 30. He was like 20, and he's now 50. Yeah,
okay,
so it's 30 years ago.
30 years ago. Which at that time, it was even more radical than now. So back then, this wasn't such a huge issue than it is now, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever confront him with that footage? Did he see the footage and did he reflect?
Oh yes, he knows this footage.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You know what the strange thing is, that he actually really likes this film. I was very afraid to show him this film because I thought, like you said, I found all this footage, and you know, I feel it's a critical film in a way. So I was very scared to show to him, and then like he watched it and he was like, oh my God, this is great. And as the minutes passed, he was like getting hysterical. He's like, oh, this is amazing. This is really like, this really captures me and everything that I stand for. I was like, oh man.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I feel as a documentary maker, that's our task almost, right? That you want to capture somebody's essence.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, there's different types of films, of course, but in the films that I like to make.
Exactly, but then there is a tricky thing comes with it, I think, which is like how you want your audience to react to it and how you think they will react to it, and what are they bringing away or taking away from the screening?
Yeah. Well, like for example, a long time I thought, like, should I do like a voiceover to kind of like, you know, give it a little bit more of direction, a viewing direction. But then at the same time, I feel that if you really want to install something in people, you shouldn't chew it too much before you give it to them. And I'm not a journalist. I see myself more as an artist than as a journalist. And all my films are like this. So also when I make films about my fucked up family, criminal family, those films are also interpretable. Is that the words, right? Yeah. So I don't give you a moral compass as a viewer. And I felt like it wouldn't be fair if I do that to all the other characters and all the other films that I make. And if then with this guy, I would have another approach. Yes.
What kind of reactions did you get? I mean, I bet you already had a few screenings even in these pandemic times, but what kind of reactions did you get after the screening from the audience? What do they take away?
So it's very mixed. I mean, you either love this film or you totally hate it. And
I'm not even thinking about love or hate, but kind of like what message they get from the film.
Oh, they get from it. Got a lot of people who felt ashamed after watching the film. Traditional Dutch people who saw the film and who felt like, okay, this is not who I want to be. This is not the country that I want to live in. And this was all before the whole Black Lives Matters thing and everything, because it came out last year. So I guess the reactions, those were the reactions of people who thought like, all right, you planted a seed in me and I want to do something because I don't want these right-wing people to gain more momentum, right? Yeah. And then I got all the people who were like, oh, can you make a film like this? And who were very critical about it. But like I said, I think we documentary makers should make work that you can discuss, right?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Discussion is good.
Yes, yeah. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't have made this film, right? I don't know, that's why I'm just, like I said, filmmaking is always an experiment, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What was the most difficult thing for you during the filmmaking process?
Well, I guess for me, and this might sound strange, but the most difficult thing was dealing with all the people around it. So then I'm talking about the financiers, the broadcasting company. I also had to make it with like a lot of white, middle-aged males, to put it like that.
Did they take
so
you?
Really,
they didn't take you seriously, or what was the problem with them?
I guess they didn't see my perspective at first, because when I 5 years ago wanted to start this film and I was saying, look, racism is really an issue here, they were all like, oh, we don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing going on in our country. And when I started, for example, editing the film with all the archival materials, some people felt uncomfortable. Even my editor felt like, we are now criticizing our Dutch culture. I don't feel comfortable with this. I feel like we are not a racist country. And then I told him, but sometimes you cannot see things if you're not in somebody else's shoes, right? So I almost felt like I had to battle the people who are supposed to be on my side, for them to understand that there are people who are experiencing real racism in Holland. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the archival footage that you just mentioned, because they are they are kind of like a separate layer of the film that would underscore or support your perspective. It's not that much of Köster's perspective. It's more like the filmmaker's perspective, and that's why it's much needed, I think, in a film, or it's great that it's there. But it's also very subjective and very personal from your point of view. I feel that you chose these kind of archives, and some of them are really, like, for example, in the scene where I think it's the Surinamese guy saying about the motherland, which became the title of the film, that he says something like that, that they are being sent to their motherland, not ours, not yours, it's their motherland. And I was wondering about your reaction when you saw that footage first, and how did you decide to incorporate it in the film?
Yeah, so for me, it was actually wonderful to find all these archival footage that I had never seen, because like there's this quote that history shall be kind to me because I intend to write it. And like, my dad is from the Caribbean, so the Netherlands is my motherland. But I, and a lot of my diasporan other people here, had never seen that footage of, for example, the first people coming from Suriname, Or there's also even footage of a woman who says that her grandma had been a slave. So for me, it was like mind-blowing. I was like, oh, whoa, this is this side of history. Why are we not seeing this side of history? Yeah. It also I also found it important in a way that that's why it's important what we are creating today, because we are making the archive of tomorrow, right? With our films that we are making. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
I didn't realize that until I was working with the archival material, and I realized that it's always a certain perspective and through a certain lens that you are watching history.
That's a
or
great
actually
point.
the present, right?
Yeah, totally. And what did Custers say about the archival footage? Did it bother him in any ways to see?
No. That's the strange, like for me, the strange thing. But in a way, it's also very logical, because he looks at it as we are such great colonists. We, the Dutch people, conquered the world. So when he sees this footage, he sees bravery. And when I see that footage, I see criminals. Let's put it that way, right? Or I see injustice. Let's put. And I guess that's the whole thing with, especially in Holland, with racism, is that because we all look with different glasses, we can see a situation, but we see different things in that situation. We read different things in that situation. So that's my philosophy on how it can possibly be that he loves it so much. For example, we have this children's holiday, Zwarte Piet, Black Piet, here in the Netherlands. It was in the film as well, right?
Of course.
And this is something that people with certain glasses, actually most of society say, oh, this is not racist. And other people will look at the same children's party and would be like, wow, this is the most racist thing ever. And we are looking at the same thing.
Right. That's a very peculiar thing for Holland. I even heard about that case a couple of years ago when it was on the news. And I had a Dutch filmmaker friend talking to me about it. And for us here, we don't have anything like that for Christmas or for Santa Claus. But it was so interesting that even a tradition for Santa Claus or Saint Nicholas can be seen as racist or is racist. I mean, it depends on where you look at it.
And that's the thing. It all depends on who you are. So what you see in the film or what you see in life in the world, it all depends on who you are and your baggage, right? Yeah.
Are they using your film? Do you have any knowledge of if they're using it in schools or universities for teaching? Are you invited to speak for the film?
We had I had an impact campaign where we had educational material made with this film. And we started to do a tour, but then the Corona thing happened and everything just kind of fell quiet. Which was also interesting is we did, for example, discussions with him, Constant Kusters, and for example, some young Muslima females. And then they would have discussions with each other
that's interesting.
After watching the film. And for me, I really, really, really liked that because I feel that's the way to go. We all need to talk to each other.
Yes, absolutely. It's a great ending for our conversation. Because we need to talk about it, and I hope that many people will see it also in Hungary. We watch the film.
Yes, because I heard that your country isn't... Because when I told Constant Kusters that we're going to screen, he's like, oh, Hungary will love me because they're just as right-wing as I am. So I feel like your country has probably...
We have a lot to talk about as well and to discuss. So this film will be a really good discussion starting point. So thank you very much for having the film at the festival, for showing it in the festival, and
thanks for inviting me
and for
taking
the time for us to be here with us today. Thank you so much, Shamira. It was really nice to talk to you.
And I wish you good luck with the rest of the festival.
Thank you, and hope to see you here in the future in Budapest.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Ciao.
Kedves nézőink, köszönjük szépen a figyelmet. Ez volt a beszélgetés Shamirával, aki a Mi Hazánk című filmnek a rendezője, és a filmet, hogyha látták, akkor reméljük, hogy a beszélgetést érdekesnek találták, ha pedig nem, akkor március 10-ig, a fesztivál végéig még meg lehet nézni online, mint az összes többi filmet is, amelyet bemutattunk a fesztiválon. További jó mozizást kívánok!